Good afternoon. I welcome you all to this time and place made sacred by your presence and intention. Today we are gathered to celebrate the life of Bethyl Davis Wood, with joy and in gratitude, and with sadness and in grief. It is our tradition in Unitarian Universalism to mark our sacred times and places through the lighting of a chalice and sharing words of invocation. We light this flame as our fervent plea to brighten the dark corners of our hearts. We hold this flame, for in it is the promise of warmth for souls grown cold in loss and despair. We kindle this light that we might continue to find comfort in its warmth, strength in its light, holiness in its presence. We follow this light that it might illuminate our search for purpose, for meaning, for forgiveness. We light this chalice, knowing even as the sacred spark of life is extinguished, in the ensuing darkness, its light, Bethyl's light, will still burn bright with memory and with hope. We light this flame of life, of love and truth for the divine promise of healing hearts. Now I will light our memorial candle, which represents the light Bethyl Wood brought to this fellowship and to the lives of so many. May this flame remind us of both our gratitude for life and the transience of it, as well as the love felt for Bethyl and the love we feel for her daughter Pamela and for one another. In this time together, may we remember Bethyl, may we find strength in our faith and in each other, and may we be reverent witnesses to the life that she led. Amen. So having only been in Greenville, South Carolina, and with the Greenville UU Fellowship since August, I felt very fortunate that I got to meet and see Bethyl on several occasions when she was able to come to Sunday services. The last time I saw her here at the fellowship, I greeted her by name as she exited the sanctuary. And she was surprised. I think it was pleasant surprise that I knew her name. And then I was surprised that somehow she didn't see herself as a person who would be recognized by that brand new minister. But Bethyl was hard to miss. Despite her tiny stature and the fact that she was in her 90s and her memory was not perhaps as reliable as it used to be, Bethyl still had quite a presence. Maybe it was the light in her eyes, or even her determined nature shining through of the difficulties of old age, because I could sense that she was a person of substance. She seemed like someone, if not now, who used to have a lot going on. And that she did. Whether it was her globe-trotting career with the State Department, her fluency in Spanish and her love for Spanish poetry, or how she gave birth to her daughter in Turkey, of all places. And then she led a fascinating life stateside, both professionally and as a volunteer during her retirement years. She led a generative life full of energy and curiosity, and I would also say a life that required a pretty strong independent streak, especially at certain times. And that's something that was really discouraged among women of her generation. But apparently it did not discourage Bethyl. It often seems like those active generative lives like Bethyl's are the hardest losses because there is just so much to miss. So we come into this day with a range of emotions. And this is a place where it's welcome to express them through tears, laughter, and sharing memories. This is a place where we navigate both the joy of love and the pain of loss, and we do it together. Our grief, it is a holy thing. It is proof that another life touched ours in a profound way. It is the mark of love, the mark of connection, and the mark of a life well lived. Now, I'm not sure if you know that Bethyl had a really strong background in the Bible. She attended theological seminary in her young adulthood. And she, being the planner that she was, requested the reading of Psalm 121 and even specified that it be the King James Version. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore.
feel a bit disoriented, and it's including the fact that my glasses were lost in hospice care. So everyone's a little on the fuzzy side, but maybe that's for the best. I didn't lose my mom on April 15th. I had been losing her for years. Even though I saw her core spark shine through, her intelligent mind working to make sense of it all, she was losing who she was in so many ways: memories, abilities, language. I couldn't say the word dementia when she was alive. Hopefully, if she can hear me now, she knows that there's no shame in that word. It never meant she was crazy. While she had more frequent memory gaps and an increasing confusing reality that she lived in, I could always see her brilliant, curious mind at work in the midst of it all. It was heartbreaking when she began to see me as multiple women, and in the mornings she would listen to music when she was having her breakfast, and when the song would come on for Elise, like we had this to begin at the beginning, she would say, "Pamela used to play that on the piano." And I was touching that she remembered. But she was, saying it to me, not really realizing who I was. And in the last week of hospice care at home, I heard my mom saying nice things about me to her friend, and she wished I was her daughter. And while it was at first painful to hear, I decided to see that moment as a gift, free of all the baggage of mother-daughter relationships and caregiving roles. She just saw me through the simple lens of caring interaction, and I guess she liked me quite a bit. In our living room, I had a digital photo frame automatically displaying an album full of memories. I was trying to help my mom remember those good times and the outings we were sharing. Now that same album is a comfort for me. Every day I see a mix of happy moments with her and memories of who she was throughout her life. Although my mom didn't get the opportunity to go to college, she was one of the most intelligent and educated people I've known. She told me that she would have loved to have studied archaeology, and I could totally picture her incredible powers of detail at work if she had. If you've ever seen the show Monk the Detective, you'd have an idea of her ability to notice the slightest change and how she was constantly working on theories about the world around her. Both my mom and dad shared a lifelong love of learning. I don't remember either of them doing casual reading of fiction, but as long as they were able, they were reading and learning. When my dad met my mom at an American embassy party in El Salvador, she was new to the country, and he had been importing equipment for his work, so he assisted her with the process of importing her car. I think he primarily fell in love with her beauty and vibrancy, not fully realizing her intelligence and independence until they eventually settled back in the States after I was born. Then he discovered how little help she needed, and they had to navigate very different dynamics as a couple. In an autobiography file I found, my mom described her early life as the youngest child, tagging along with her older brothers when they went fishing. She also talked fondly about a clutch of bantam fowl that she was given to raise for their eggs, a pint-sized rooster and 5 buff-colored hens. She delighted in selecting the darkest brown egg from a carton, remembering those days with a smile. When she was about 13 years old, she joined 2 of her brothers at a residential Bible school, beginning an isolated life there. She returned home at about 23 years old, and she never really got in sync with popular culture, but she became deeply engaged with the political landscape. Part of my interest in volunteering for civic tech projects is inspired by growing up witnessing her working at the polls on election day. Both of my parents were engaged citizens. One of my favorite memories of my mom was when she was visiting me in California. We attended a gathering in support of a local nonprofit organization. As we mingled with glasses of wine in hand, my mom began to chat with a young Hispanic man. I was amazed at how she launched into a discussion of the politics of his home country and the region. She seemed so courageous to be wading into those potentially charged waters, and I braced myself for possible tension between them. But instead, I watched in awe as she had him engaged in a lively discussion. Now, when I look at the photo of my younger mom sitting at a table attending a Marine Corps ball during her Foreign Service years, I wonder what conversation had her so engaged. Another political one, I imagine. It's one of my favorite photos of her, and you'll see it in the video. My mom spoke so little about her religious past or her thoughts on faith. When I ventured into topics like religion or philosophy, my mom said, "I'm a Martha," from the Bible, that she was more interested in doing the mundane tasks of life. And while my spiritual interests were more wide-ranging than hers, our souls met in those moments when we delighted in the birds and the trees around us. And I walked with her outside to look up at the full moon. And although these recent years taking care of my mom at home were challenging, and she was really convinced she should be living alone, I am so grateful for the touching moments that we had together. She had a deep affection for her family, her mom and her siblings and all their children. And becoming a mother at 40 years old brought her especially close to her sister, who was 12 years older and cared for many children in her lifetime. Wanting the same experience of family life for me, it was not surprising that my mom looked into adoption when she wasn't able to get pregnant a second time. But in those days, my dad's divorce was sadly a barrier to adopting. So for the most part, I grew up an only child, but it was important to her to be welcoming during visits from my father's adult children. Because of that, I was lucky to have a chance to have a relationship with them, especially my sister Julie, who passed away in 2019. Although 21 years older, she had been in my life since I was a baby. My mom's warmth extended to everyone she met, and especially to her students in the English as a Second Language program after she retired. She volunteered every Saturday until the program ended. Her students invited her to family weddings and visited her in the hospital when she had surgery for her fractured back. My mom embraced every phase of her life: education, foreign service, motherhood, nonprofit work, volunteering. I think we had in common that we bloomed wherever we were planted, even in the sparseness of a rocky landscape. Being an organ donor was part of my mom's final wishes, but that wasn't possible at the time of her passing. I think of her as having lived so fully and vibrantly in her life that she had used up all of her life capacity in her body. Yet until the end, she was making plans to attend the next Sunday service and the upcoming Chautauqua talk on Steve Jobs. It broke my heart to think she had things left undone, but I realized that I want to go to the end of my life still engaged and yearning to learn, still using what vibrancy I have left until the very end. It was not fathomable to anyone that my mom would come to the end of her life at a time when her family, her New England family, couldn't come to be with us, in part because of how quickly she was leaving. Too fast for those she left behind, but not fast enough to free her of so much suffering. However, the vacuum created by our isolation and The challenge of finding caregiving help on a holiday weekend allowed my mom's friends to embrace us with amazing support. Jan and Sabrina spending nights with us, and Helen the afternoons, so I wouldn't be alone caring for my mom during the home hospice while waiting for caregivers to be found to cover the shifts. I will be forever grateful to all who circled around us to support us both in the past few years and the shock of the last 2 weeks, and grateful that I managed to hang on and keep her at home until her passing. So I have a sense of having finished a journey, made it to a mountaintop of sorts, and have the task of carrying on without her now. And perhaps I'll finally learn Spanish, like both of my parents. And even in the last years, my mom wanted to find a record player to play the poetry of a favorite poet, Federico Garcia Lorca. We're going to listen to some of one of those poems now.
La luna vino a la fragua con su polizón de nardos. El niño la mira, mira. El niño la está mirando. En el aire conmovido mueve la luna sus brazos y enseña lúbrica y pura sus senos de duro estaño. Huye luna, luna, luna. Si vinieran los gitanos, harían con tu corazón collares y anillos blancos. Niño, déjame que baile. Cuando vengan los gitanos, te encontrarán sobre el yunque, con los ojillos cerrados. Huye luna, 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 que ya siento sus caballos. Niño, déjame, no pises mi blancor almidonado. El jinete se acercaba, tocando el tambor del llano. Dentro de la fragua el niño tiene los ojos cerrados. Por el olivar venían bronce y sueño los gitanos, las cabezas levantadas y los ojos entornados. Como canta la sumaya, ¡ay! Como canta en el árbol. Por el cielo va la luna, con un niño de la mano. Dentro de la fragua lloran dando gritos los gitanos. El aire la vela, vela. El aire la está velando.
Now I would like to invite anyone who would like to come up to the microphone right here and share a story or a remembrance of Bethyl.
Hello. I'm Helen McDowell. I'm a retired home economist with Clemson Extension Service from Lawrence County, and it was at our extension office that I met Bethyl about 30 years ago. She came into our office to see if I knew about any birding clubs in the county. And I did not. We had lots of different organizations that met, but no birding clubs. And she was real interested in getting one started. So I said, well, I could put an article in the newspaper and see if there's any interest and set up a meeting time and see who shows up. So that's what we did, and we had a big turnout, men and women. Normally, the people I work with were just women since I was a home economist, but we were really happy with the group that showed up. And Bethyl had been in a birding club before she retired and moved to Lawrence, and she told the group about some of the things they had done, and they were very interested in having a club, so she helped get the group organized. And the only thing I had to do, this was the easiest group I had, because all I had to do was advertise it, because they did everything else. And it was thanks to Bethyl that this was such a success. And Bethyl was in our office a lot, and this has been quite a few years ago, 30, I guess. And she noticed that we were short on the secretarial staff because of budget cuts, not just the extension service. Every office in general was having problems that way. And she volunteered to come in and help us out some if we would like. And we said, we'd love for you to. And so she came in one day a week and devoted that day, I think it was Friday every week, to helping with whatever needed to be done, secretarial or any other way. And you know, Bethyl was the type, you didn't really have to point out what needed to be done. She could see without telling her. And she just filled right in. And she didn't just do secretarial things. As a home economist, I was working on programs, and she frequently helped me with things that I was working on besides secretarial things. And not only the extension service was a group she volunteered with, she had many other groups that she volunteered with. Pamela already mentioned the Spanish or the English as a second language group, and you probably noticed the picture on the back of the program. That's her with some of those people. And Clemson Extension once a year has a big banquet. We have a big turnout, several hundred people. And we give awards at that banquet. And that year, Bethyl received the Volunteer of the Year award. She was certainly deserving. And I really got to know Bethyl well during that time. And I remember one incident in our office. The sheriff's department had sent a young lady over to help us out. She was with some kind of, I'm not sure what it was exactly, but it had to do with something that she had done wrong, and this was a way of her making up for it. But she only showed up a few days, and we learned that she was in jail, and she had 2 children, and we heard that they were talking about taking her children away. And one of the people there in our office said, well, she's getting exactly what she deserves. And Bethyl said, no. Said no mother should ever have to give up their children. She was a caring person. And after about 3 years after I met Bethyl, I retired and moved to Greenville. My husband, who's back here with me, grew up in Greenville, and so we decided to move to Greenville. But that was not the end of our friendship. We still kept in touch by phone and went out to eat lots. She still lived in Lawrence, and I lived in Greenville, but we met in Simpsonville a lot to go to some restaurant. We were always trying new restaurants. Bethyl loved the Greenville News, and she was always reading about the new restaurants that were opening up. And when we would get together, she'd come with an article, and she'd say, this is what I have found. How would you like to meet there next time? And it was fun trying new restaurants. But after Bethyl had a minor traffic accident, she stopped driving. And after that, she and I started going grocery shopping every week. We'd go grocery shopping and we'd go out to eat. And one of her very favorite places to eat was Stroessner's Bakery. And quiche was her favorite thing there. She didn't always have quiche, but she had it frequently. And another thing she liked they had was Morning Glory muffins. And she would buy them by the dozen and put them in her freezer. And Bethyl was one of the most organized people I have ever known. And you should have seen inside that little freezer in her refrigerator. She had it packed full. It was like building blocks, and everyone was in its place, and there wasn't an inch of space left. But I'm guessing that Bethyl is still having Morning Glory muffins for breakfast in heaven.
Helen, you did that without any notes. and I've got I'm Jan Humphrey, and been a friend of Bethyl's now for 8 years, maybe. I first met her when we both joined a new covenant circle formed out of this church, and those are just small group ministries kind of, where we get together and talk about different subjects. And it was nice to be, it met on an afternoon, and I discovered that Pamela was having to bring Bethyl to those sessions, and so I just said, well, it's almost on my way, I'll pick her up. And so it was really more during those drives than the actual covenant circle meetings where I got to know Bethyl and learned all those amazing stories that you've read in the obituary and that Pamela relayed. And when the covenant circle finally disbanded and in the middle of COVID, then once I could, I would just go over. I couldn't get enough of those stories, so I'd say, can I come over and play with Bethyl? I mean, she was just amazing. She obviously had a number of health issues over the years, but that independent spirit of hers kept her going. And then, of course, Pamela came and helped her, and they moved in together. I don't think Bethyl ever admitted that she needed looking after. But it had to be, that a feisty woman, that had to be a bit of a challenge, but I could see there was a lot of love there. I miss our visits and fascinating conversations. At the same time, I've enjoyed getting to know Pamela, and I appreciate that friendship and hold you in my heart.
Hi, I'm Annette Garver, and I met Bethyl when when they were asking for someone to give rides to church and back, and so for a long period of time I would go on Sunday morning and pick her up and bring her to church and then take her home afterward. And we had constant conversations in the car. Every time we'd go past a tree that had a bird in it, or the lake out there in that complex, she would point out the birds and identify them, and I was just really so struck by how she was able to know, it seemed like every bird in the world. And the conversations going back and coming back and forth to church were always interesting. Sometimes she talked about her life and what had been going on. I remember the first time I ever met Bethyl was before that, before I even knew that she was a member of GOOF, and that was when I was ushering for the GSO Spotlight series. And And I remember there was this little lady that came in, and they had food out there. I think it was at Center Stage, and they had food out there in the lobby. And they were, or it may have been at First Baptist Church, I can't remember, but they were allowed to take the patrons were allowed to take food into the concert and eat it in there. And I remember Bethyl would come in, and the other usher and I would have to take the ticket from the person as they came through the doors, and I would take her ticket, and she would go in, and then she would go back out, and I was like, how am I going to keep track of her? But then I got to know her when I was giving her rides here and back, and I remember when the move was happening. And I was over there with Pamela, and we were trying to get her to pack things up and move, and she didn't want to leave anything. And actually, we finally convinced her to give up some things. And I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but I still have a box of the clothes that there were like 2 or 3 items that she agreed to give up, not many. And they're still in my garage. They were supposed to go to Goodwill, and I'll have to ask Pamela if she wants them back. But I will really miss Bethyl. I really enjoyed that whole time of going back and forth with her, and I considered her a very dear friend long before that was over with.
With tears and laughter, we dip into the deep well of love and memory. May these memories shared, as well as those unspoken, nourish you and hold you this day and always. Amen.
friend of Pamela's. We've known each other quite a long time, and I had a few opportunities to be with Bethyl on the weekends. I would come in and see her, and I don't know about you, but I felt like I've gotten to know her better today, and I wish I had known her even longer than I did. What a remarkable woman. And this poem I'm about to read is a clipping that Pamela found in her files. Death is nothing at all. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away to the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into the tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without the trace of a shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same that it ever was. This is absolute, unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind because I'm out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well.
As our service draws to the close, I invite you to join me in a responsive reading. Your response is quite simple. I will say a line, and you will respond along with me the words, "We remember her." At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we remember her. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember her. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. As long as we live, she too will live, for she is now part of us as we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember her. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember her. When we have achievements that are based on hers, we remember her. As long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. Thank you. We have come to share the loss we have felt in Bethyl Wood's passing, and some examples of the joy we carry from her life. This we have done, but before we extinguish the chalice, let us acknowledge that we will not, that we cannot extinguish the love she showed us, or her memory, or the love we carry forward. This congregation and many other lives have absorbed so much light from Bethyl. We must continue to reflect that light into the lives of all we encounter. May we always be able to see that light as it is reflected in all we do, and remember and smile, knowing her light is shining from us too. Dear ones, go in peace.
I said, Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand, and Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand. She said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, do you not know about sorrow? And Julian, do you not know about pain? And I said, Julian, do you not know about hunger? And Julian, do you not know about shame? But she said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, do you not know about loneliness? And Julian, do you not know about disease? And I said, Julian, do you not know about cruelty? I said, Julian, it's too much, it brought me to my knees. But she said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. And she said, no one does not know about brought me to my knees, where I heard all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. I said, Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand, and Julian, you are holy, you are holding my hand. She said, all will be well, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. And she said, baby girl, do you not know about tenderness? She said, baby girl, do you not know about friends? And she said, baby girl,